further delay, we can go ahead and get started if you're ready, Ron.
Sure.
Okay, so then I hand it over to you.
All right. So everybody, my name's Ron Schreiber. I'm an attorney in the area. I've been here practicing from here. Now, used to work with Don Wells. He's the closing attorney. Uh, we hosted the Christmas chamber party forever when we were at Old Firm Nast, and he went on his own probably 5-6 years ago, and I went on last year.
Congratulations.
Oh, thank you, thank you. Just a little bit more about me. Let's see, wife Casey, she'd be mad I posted that picture, but she's certified paralegal. Kids, so the two oldest are my wife, 16 and 10. We have a 1-year-old together, and then we got a 3-week-old. So I'm pretty tired. So I don't do real estate closings. I stay away from those. I'm sometimes involved in them because I do a lot of estate work. So wills, trust, probate, guardianships, as well as car accidents. So if you remember my name and know anybody that has legal needs other than a closing, you can send them to me. I'll see if I can help them. If I can, I'll try to refer them somebody that can. So probably I'll just talk about I guess real estate and how it might interact with my practice. So when somebody dies, if you have a will, you don't have to do a new deed. A lot of folks think you have to do a deed when somebody dies and then like redo it. But you don't. The actual death certificate plus the will, that's basically the deed transfers the property. So when you're doing searches in the tax office, especially Wake County, they'll have like usually a reference to an e-file, like a booking page, which won't come up in the deed office. I don't know why they don't record those, but anyway, that serves as the deed. If there's not a will, the law says that it's owned by the heirs. Well, who are the heirs, right? So you don't really know. I mean, you might know if you had a mom that died and she only had one child, but in general, the title company is going to want you to do open up probate and clear that up for them. A difference between wills and trusts. Our court system finally caught up 20 years later with the federal system, and we're now electronic. So a lot of what we do is online. Trade off of that, it's publicly available to anybody that wants to browse the website. So the wills are public record, and you can see what somebody had and who's getting it. So it have heard that's leading to more targeting of scammers, that sort of thing, targeting those people that are getting money. Trust, private, and usually quicker. They're more expensive to set up than a regular will, but you either pay the money now up front and have it clean for your heirs, or if we got to do a probate, it's probably about the same. A little bit more expensive to probate. Timeline, generally our work with the executors is about a year, from start to finish. However, they call it a final accounting process where the court looks at everything, looks at your proposed plan of distribution to all the heirs. Johnson County is about 6 months behind. Wake County, they're like 13 months behind. So it got a lot of frustrated heirs who are eager to get their money, and it's like, well, we're waiting on the court system. Everybody's understaffed and they can't keep anybody. So so about a year plus before people can get their money. But you can sell property quickly, right? So if you do have a situation where there's property and the family can't afford it, there might be a mortgage on it, and they want to get rid of it quickly, we still can sell it pretty quick. You have to open up the estate. We need a death certificate, a couple of forms, and then as soon as we publish the newspaper ad, it's still a newspaper, the title companies are cool with selling the property immediately. So you can even list it the day after somebody dies, but you can enter into a contract as soon as the death notice, creditor notice hits the newspaper. The title companies do require that the heirs and the executor sign off on an indemnity agreement, because generally the real estate closing attorneys would disperse the money to the heirs. Whenever I'm involved, though, to protect the executor, myself, and any known creditors out there, I generally require that the heirs and the closing attorney turn the money over to me. I keep it in my trust account and wait for the court's permission before dispersing the money. Timeline for trust, it's not nearly as long as the 1 year, probate timeline. I mean, it could be the next day, closing accounts, if the money is set up in a trust, you can just take the death certificate to the brokerage account, Wells Fargo, Truist Bank, whatever, and they should go ahead and tender the money out to whoever's in charge of the trust. It's also private, so people can't see who's getting what.
Question for you.
Sure.
If you pass and you have a will, but no trust in place, do you have to go through probate?
Maybe not. So, if you're not planning on selling the property, no. But if you are planning on selling the property, within 2 years, you do have to go through probate.
Okay.
Unless it's a situation like, say you and I owned it, it's a brother and sister, and it's joint with survivorship, and I die, you don't have to go to probate because you are automatically the heir because of the title on the deed. All right, this is the fun stuff I get to deal with. Fighting family members and people won't cooperate. So situations where I'll get calls that, hey, my sister's squatting on the property and she won't leave, and she's I'm the one paying the taxes on it, she's not contributing, I'm the one paying the mortgage on it, it's not fair, she should be paying rent, she's gonna live there. So a couple options. I say, well, it's appears y'all hate each other enough, why don't you move in there with her, right? So that has worked a few times where we've threatened to move in and then they start cooperating. Alternatively, if they just won't cooperate whatsoever, there's a partition process that I can help with, where we just go to the court and say, hey, I no longer want to be a co-owner with this person anymore. Help me out. So if it's a 100-acre farm, the court's generally just going to divvy it up equitably, probably 50 acres to them, 50 acres to the other person. If it's a single family residence, that one they can't divide it in half, so the court's going to sell it through the Judicial Sales Act. That's where they there's a notice at the courthouse of any houses that are going through that process. Not necessarily a courthouse often. We generally list them with the realtor. But when there isn't, say we find a buyer, y'all doing the standard paperwork that y'all are going to do. We just have to turn it into court and say, hey, we got an offer. We went under contract with this buyer, this dead person's house, or whoever, and the court's going to say, okay, we're going to leave the house open for sale for 10 more days to give the public a chance, because there there's be shady stuff going on. So now at least this is to protect all the people that are owners of the property are getting the most value that they can for it, and they leave it open for 10 days. Somebody can come in and bid more, but it can't just be like $1 more. It's got to be 5% more, so it's pretty substantial. So we generally don't see a lot of back and forth with the bidding with courthouse sales, because usually the houses are going under contract for the market value in the first place.
How often does it come to that in your experience?
I mean, it's not very often.
Okay.
I'm not in court every week doing this, but several times a year, with my caseload. But if a lot of times I can get the family on board, and that kind of explain the difference. Like, hey, you can either cooperate, work with us, and use this realtor, and it's going to save everybody money, or we can go through the court process. You're going to lose. Like, I'm going to get what I want anyway. I'm going to sell the property, but it's going to cost you more because in addition to paying a realtor fee, the court also appoints what they call a commissioner, and that commissioner also can get 5%. So you're talking about 10%, 11% of the sales price off the top just for wanting to be an ass. So that was, I kind of already talked about that. The extra 10 days from going to the court. Minors that own property, that also has some extra hoops to deal with. A superior court judge has to sign off on all of this. Most of the work in the area of the wills and the probate, it's just through like Michelle Ball, who's the clerk of court. But whenever there's a minor or an incompetent person too, that has to go up to the superior court level, and Judge Locke has to sign off on it if it's in Johnston. Sometimes, just a few extra thoughts. A lot of what I do for I'll just say, older parents is, there's concerns about nursing home costs. And, the average cost of nursing home these days is $120,000 a year, 8 to 10 a month. And that's expensive. The state will pay, for that care. But generally they're, after the person dies, then they're selling the house, getting their money back. So there's some things that I do on the front end. If we haven't put it in a trust, we will add the children's names to the deed. We'll keep lifetime rights in the name of the parent, so they own the property, they're responsible for it. The kids can't, kick them out and sell the house. But the property automatically passes to the kids after the parents die. And by doing that, it bypasses the estate. There is no estate. The house is a part of the estate, and the state can't take any of the real estate. But I did run into a situation maybe a year ago. I had a gentleman who told me that he was here. He came from New York. He was in his final house, and he wanted to do that. He wanted to leave it the property to his daughter and his grandson. And whenever the issues with him told him did it, well, life happens. He got sick, and for whatever reason needed to go back to New York and needed to sell the house so he could buy a new house in New York. And well, his grandson had a future expectation interest in the property, so we had to go to the court and get the court's permission on that. Court ultimately gave the permission to her, but there had to be a guardian. They called a guardian ad litem involved, which is another attorney, local attorney, who looks at the situation. And sometimes we've had to pay out and put money and deposit it with the courthouse for the children to get when they turn 18.
So we have actually a question from one of the ladies that are on Zoom. Anita, if I'm pronouncing your name correctly.
Yes, that's correct. Thank you. Hi, Keith. I have a question for you. I just want to make sure that I'm doing my due diligence. I have a listing that I'm going to be listing soon. And what the situation is, the sellers are two sisters. The mother passed. The estate has already been settled, and the house was not a part of the estate. Basically, we just need the will and the deed to sell the property. Is that correct?
Yeah, it sounds like if the estate has already gone through the court process and been settled, like you said, then yeah, a new deed doesn't have to be done until the buyer buys it. So the closing attorney will handle that. So you'll just, you'll need for the closing attorney, the estate file number, which will contain the death certificate. It'll list the property in general, even though it didn't go through the estate. It will it'll be referenced in the estate file, and that'll be good enough for the title company.
Okay, is there anything else that I need to do as far as my due diligence, as far as the realtor, just to make sure I'm covering all the bases?
I mean, no, as long as the estate's been settled and closed, if you want to pull the file, which you can look it up. There's if you were to look up on Google, North Carolina court portal or e-portal, you can use the I guess the mother's name, and you should be able to pull up the estate file, which will contain all the documents. You know, you can print those off and have those into a PDF for the closing attorney. That would probably help them out. But in there, you're going to want to look for what's called the final account. And as long as that's been, you know, filed and approved by the court, then you should be golden.
And
Okay,
if you're
great.
praying, can I pray that the sisters get along?
Yeah. And if
Yeah,
for some reason they don't, yeah, you can call me.
You call me too, I just dealt with it.
Yeah, they get along great, but thank you so much.
You're welcome. Yeah, I got a new client who's they got some property over on 401, like right down the street from Costco, like 40 or 50 acres, and they don't get along
Oh boy.
at all. And there's one sister that's squatting in the mama's house that sits on 1 acre, and allegations of stealing, and
Oh, it's tough.
that one's going to be, yeah, that'll be one that's in the court for a couple of years. So I just throw up like my standard price rate for will. So if it's a couple, just, you know, will and powers of attorney, you know, a little over $2,000. Trust, about the same, $2,500. And we can put whatever we want. I mean, you can put your car in the trust, you know, title that in DMV, bank accounts. If they own property, real estate, we would do a new deed and deed that over to the trust. So instead of, you know, Joe and Cindy Smith, it'll probably be the Joe and Cindy Smith Family Trust. Pretty simple to do those, and that can certainly protect the property, make it cleaner. And you can also include provisions like pretty common, like, you know, you don't want somebody at 18 inheriting 100 or $1 million. So oftentimes we'll appoint somebody else to be in charge. They have to look after money, let them still use money and property to send them to school, buy them a car, pay for insurance, books, tuition, what have you. But, you know, probably not give them the money until they're a little bit older, usually 35 or usually time frame I recommend. So yeah, I'm happy to answer any other questions that you have. Everybody should have a will. You never know what's going to happen. You should also have your powers of attorney done. There's 2 powers of attorney. There's a financial power of attorney that basically lets somebody else manage your checkbook and your bills and your property if something happens. And then there's a healthcare power of attorney that would allow somebody else to make medical decisions when you cannot. So, you know, just this past weekend, ran into, you know, one of the things in life, my wife, who's, you know, 3 weeks post birth, suddenly had to take her to the emergency room at 4 o'clock one Saturday morning with, you know, finding it was gallstones and gallbladder, and that had to be removed. And there's a surgery immediately scheduled for the next day. And during that process, they found some issues they couldn't fix right then and there. So they came to me, and we had all their stuff on file, and with them powers of attorney and whatnot, and we had to transfer her direct and for a second procedure yesterday. So yeah, so hopefully she'll come on.
Oh, she's on the mend soon. I was gonna ask
Yeah.
you, you have a will? You have all the powers.
Yeah, you know what? I've been procrastinating because
Yeah, I bet you have.
we did our wills after we got married. It was the second marriage for us, but we did our wills back in 2021 before both of our kids
Yeah.
together.
Oh. We just redid ours, and it's funny because a lot of people don't get it, they think they have nothing, but everybody has something, and if you don't have a will, trust me, you are leaving your children a nightmare, so, or whatever the errors might be.
So
Just put it on paper, it doesn't matter what it says, just put it on paper, it's an easy thing you can do to make things much smoother.
do you suggest having, is it having a trust overall, or do you need both, or can you have either or?
You can have either. Most people do just standard will and trust, and that works. It's just trade off. It's it's cheaper to do, but there's a waiting period generally. It's maybe a year and a half from start to finish after somebody dies. So
Okay.
yeah, I got a lot of people that are eager to get their money quicker,
Mhm.
right? Whereas a trust, you can set it up and have the money. So maybe it's staggered out,
Mhm.
but if the money's needed immediately, if the trust, if we set it up that way, I mean, you can get it the day after somebody dies.
I was gonna save this until you were done, I don't know if you are, so I'm sorry if I'm interrupting you, but.
No, I'm pretty much.
I was just gonna add that I recently had a trust. And we got to the closing table and found out that the trust had been written poorly and incorrectly. Based on what the wishes were, and we had to redo everything with two sisters who did not get along. At the closing table, and it was a nightmare, so what I would tell you is if you come across a trust, call Ron. Or another attorney that deals with that and validate that trust the way it was written, because apparently what I learned during that experience is. There's a lot of people out there that are bad that sell these trusts. And they make a lot of money selling these trusts, and then they don't do it properly, or they don't do it according to the laws of our state. It could be done in another state. The family thinks it's great, and it's not with the paper it's written on. So just when you do come across a trust, have an outside person please look at it, the closing attorney, Ron, or whoever, to make sure that it's,
I
Yeah.
just always thought you would need an attorney for, that's the best way to go, have an attorney prepare something
right.
like that.
And I think they did, but they ordered they ordered it from a company that was not.
Like a legal
specific.
Zoom or something.
Uh-huh.
Oh,
It
okay,
wasn't
gotcha.
legal Zoom, but it was something like that. And the way it was written did not conform to the North Carolina laws. So they thought they had it perfectly well, and I'd never done a trust before. I thought we were just smooth sailing. I said, give me the trust paperwork. I sent it on to the attorney. And we didn't know about it until it was almost too late.
I see that stuff, not every day, but it's not kind of regularly each year. Where I'll see that somebody paid for a packet, a legal Zoom packet or similar, and they bring it to me, and it's it's not notarized, it's not witnessed by a third party.
Yeah.
I got this one. I mean, this is a recent one. We'll call him Grandpa, right? So and then he had two kids, no relationship with them. Wanted to leave everything though to a grandson that shared his name, worth $2 million. All this property down at in New Hanover or Onslow, I can't remember where it's right now, and wanted to leave everything to the grandson, worth all this money, but wouldn't spend $600 on getting a will or anything. He didn't have anything set up, so he was on hospice. He wasn't incompetent yet, but they knew his time was coming quick, so he had it's not really even a granddaughter, but family friend pull something like off LegalZoom. They did that, went and signed it. It wasn't notarized. It was witnessed, which can work, but it was witnessed by family members that are getting the property. So it's like it's busted, like it's no good. So
Yeah, just get your hands on any paperwork when it comes to this type of stuff, estates and wills, please get your hands on the paperwork up front. If I could learn one lesson and get it where it needs to go to be validated long before closing.
We got one more question from Zoom land before we let you go.
Okay.
Tanya, am I pronouncing your name correctly? Feel free to unmute and
Yes.
ask that.
That's correct.
Go right ahead. We're listening.
Yeah, I had a question. You mentioned about the power of attorney. So, if you have elder parents in their case related to medical as well, right? In addition to assets, like for the power of attorney, like overall, right? For all across. Is that
Right.
what you meant to say, or for decision
that you
making?
should have both.
Yeah, they're two separate.
Two separate documents. One financial that lets if you needed to, downsize your parents' house and get them into a condo or an older community, and then the medical as well, where you can make decisions if they can't.
Okay, thank
Okay, just last thing about that one I was just telling you about, the top sold or Alonzo New Hanover property that guy. So essentially, all this property may go to his son and daughter that he hasn't had a relationship for 20 years.
Oh, boy.
Another thing, parents, y'all also need to have at least a will done, because let's just say you inherited property and you're married. You might think that the property is automatically going to go to your husband, but it's not. The majority of it will probably, but if you got 2 kids, the property passes a third, a third, a third. So then you end up with 2 minor kids who've added property, and anyway, get a will.
Caveat, your job's done fine.
Yeah.
No, but we need them, that's for sure.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. All right, I got, there's some bags and pens out. There's some good pens out there too, and some safety whistles for the girls. I guess I'll close
Yeah,
those.
and for me to share your contact information in the chat, which I will do.
I think maybe if you look at my email, that
It's right in your signature.
perfect. Okay. Do you have that thumb drive? Or is it? No, you give it back to me.
I give it back.
All right, I'll bring back.
Thank you, Ron, we appreciate it.
I'll bring back some lunch in a little bit.
I don't know how to find mine back.
I got you.
Fun
Thank you
fact,
so much, Ron.
thanks again, Ron. Fun fact, 50% of humans over the age of 80 are gonna get dementia. So get those power of attorneys early, before it's too late. That's what I would tell you on your parents, or give it, if you are the parent, give it to someone that you trust. That's my little start. So while
Thank you.
Nicole is getting my presentation queued up, let me go ahead and introduce myself. For those that don't know me, I'm Tracey O'Dowd. I have been licensed a long time. This is not my presentation, and these are not my notes. But I do have some experience, and I feel like I'm qualified to talk on the topic. So we're just going to go for it and have some fun. I'm probably going to talk a little quicker than we just heard, because I'm going to try to get a lot of information in quickly. But feel free to ask me if you have any questions or want to talk about something a little bit further. I think that, well, before I get started, if by show of hands, raise your hand if you had your license for less than 1 year. Raise your hand if you've had your license for less than 5 years. And less than 10 years. Wow, anybody over 10 years besides me? Oh, sorry, anybody not yet licensed? Abigail. Well, so the reason that we're here today is to talk about what you can do as an agent, particularly working with buyers, to preemptively see some of these problems you might come across that can save your clients money during the due diligence process. I am not going to actually go by the slide, because as I pointed out, it's not my slide. So I didn't put it together, so it doesn't make sense to me, but I want it there for you guys to be able to take notes or whatever. So if I need to move the slide forward, just tell me, because I'm likely to forget about it, forget it's even back there. So the reason that we're here is just like I talked about, to figure out what we can do to save our clients up front. It helps buyers avoid costly surprises, protects their due diligence fee, and really informs a stronger offer strategy. Because if we uncover some of these things that are hot buttons for us, we can write those into the offer and actually get them handled before we're under contract and things are a little bit more tense and dicey. So the first things that we want to do when we identify a property, I'll be very honest with you. I don't personally do this for every single house I'm going to show. It would be exhausting. So I'm going to do this when I sense that this is something that, most of this, I'm going to do this if I feel like this is a house that they're interested in, right? You pull up in the driveway, the house is garbage. You may elect not to do all of these things we're going to talk about. But when you get an idea this might be the house for them, this is when we want to dive in and make sure we're uncovering all the things. So the first thing you want to do is check about the ownership. You're going to check RPR. Does everyone know what RPR is?
Yeah.
And are you using it? What do you use it for mostly?
Yeah.
You use it for comps?
Yep, information on the property.
General information? Okay. And do you guys use the CRS tax suite?
Yeah.
Okay. I find a lot of information on the tax suite. And one of the things that Keith had in his notes that I really like to utilize particularly even when you're writing the offer, but it'll tell you a lot of information about the property. If you compare the names on the RPODs with the names on the deed. And because which one do you think is going to be the most current? Just take a wild guess. Which one is going to have the most current owners? Is it going to be the CRS tax sheet or the RPODs attached to the listing?
You say.
Who said RPODs? Yeah. Why?
Because they just wrote.
Because they just wrote them. Great point. So we would think that our government is going to be the most accurate information, but it doesn't always catch up. Because if you think about it, somebody gets divorced, do they call the county and go, can you take this guy off my, well, actually, when they get divorced, they probably do. But if someone passes or if we get married, I didn't, if our first house we owned, we bought it separately. We never told them that we were married. So if one of us had just left, they would have no idea of knowing that one of us had left the ownership or had left the property. So do check that, because whatever is on the RPODs, that listing agent is the one who was just there, and they know exactly who has the right to sell this property, and that's who they're going to list on that RPODs. Make sense? Okay. You can also check the ownership history, because if it is only been owned for a short period of time and the name is an LLC, what might we be looking at? What type of property? A flip. And what could you learn from a flip? What are your thoughts on flips in general? Are you more comfortable with them, less comfortable with them? You like showing them, you don't like showing them.
It's probably gonna be an older house.
Okay.
So keep that in mind. Most flips that I've seen are like 1930s. It's like, wow, holy lead paint disclosure, 100%. Yeah, it's just gonna be an older house, but you can see when they actually got the property and the history and see how fast they did things.
Mhm.
And sometimes if it's really quick, you can see how it's really quick when you show the property.
Yeah, and there's a lot of different types of flippers out there, and sometimes they are old properties. Sometimes they just were rode hard. I hate to say it, but there are some newer properties that get flipped because the people that lived in them didn't care about them. They may have only been there a year, but I've seen a house get completely trashed in a year.
Yeah.
And so what you want to look for as an agent, there's some advantages I feel like to a flipped home, because if it's flipped, you got a lot of new components in there, right? So you probably have new appliances. Great. We can check that off our list of things that we have to look for to make sure they're going to be working properly. But they may have gone to some extensive repairs. They may have done some foundation stuff that could have actually hurt the house. I've seen that where they went to go shore something up and they cut something in the process that made more damage than what they had done. So just because it's been flipped and it looks new and in a shiny box doesn't mean that it really is. I sold a flipped house that the home inspector alerted some foundation issues. I took them to the seller. The seller said, we were down there, no problems here. My buyer chose it that way. And less than 6 months later, the entire ceiling caved in from this issue that was in the middle of the house, not even in, it didn't even start in that room, but because of the issue in the middle of the house with the foundation, it put too much stress on the outside walls, and literally the whole ceiling fell on this man's bed. So, and again, I wasn't liable. We had our inspection. We talked about it. They chose to take it as its current condition. But had I not pushed the home inspection, had I not had those conversations, I may have been liable for that. Had I assumed, which is a word that we never ever use in real estate, right? Do we assume anything?
No.
Law, don't ever assume. Okay. Any questions about any of that so far? You do want to see if it's a flip, you need to do some research on that flipper, because that's the other thing. A lot of these flippers flip hundreds of homes a year. They're never looking at this house. I just sold one recently where it had been flipped. The buyers were angry because it clearly had some roof issues. It was an old roof, and they were like, why didn't they put in a new roof? Well, they probably never laid eyes on this house. They bought it for cheap. They sent their people over and said, make it pretty, and we'll wait for the home inspection to come back to see what's wrong with it. It's cheaper for them that way. Why are they going to give you a new roof if the next buyer wouldn't have asked for it? So you do have to, you never assume that they did everything that they should have done. Still hammer home those inspections. Okay.
I find that investors I guess maybe they don't care as much because they don't have that any emotional attachment.
That's right. And that's the next thing I was going to say is that they don't care as much.
Mhm.
It's a business to them.
Mhm.
And just like you have some builders who are better than others, not all builders are created equal.
Mhm.
So you do need to investigate that actual flipper and find out how many do they do? What are the complaints on them? Are there any better business, complaints? This one in particular, I had sold one of that flipper's properties a year prior. And a year later, we have no complaints. And so I was able to say to my people, I know this guy, I've sold his property, I've contacted the agent. I promise you, he never set foot on the property. He didn't know it needs a roof and he's willing to give you one. So let's stop worrying about it and move on. Okay.
Yeah, I showed one recently to a general contractor who it wasn't, they weren't flipping, but the owner did some repairs. And they replaced the stove with a gas stove, which means that you're required to have ventilation above it. You know where that ventilation was going? Not outside of the house,
Straight into the kitchen.
into the attic.
Oh, joy.
And
That's
so,
not a good place for it either.
yeah, and then they also had a sunroom that wasn't permitted that they added to the square footage, and I talked to the listing agent, he didn't care.
Well, you actually can add it to the square footage if it's not permitted, but you have to disclose that it wasn't permitted. You're allowed to add it. You didn't used to be able to. Way back in the day, you didn't, but in the last,
What do you recommend? I don't know.
I add it, but I clearly disclosed that it was not permitted.
I thought
Yeah.
no matter what, you couldn't add it.
If it's heated and cooled, you can now. Now, if someone finds finds in the real estate commission, but I swear I called them about that and I really think I'm right. Do you disagree, Wendy? You have a lot of experience.
I heard both,
Okay.
but
I'm pretty sure that in the old days you couldn't, but they changed it and like 5 to 7 years ago.
I'm sure that's.
Yes, you can count it, but because I think I've even looked this up in the last year or two. And I think you can, but you have to disclose it. That was a great question. Any other questions? Okay, moving on, HOA. So this is a big one that we can get ourselves in a lot of trouble because you typically know before you ever set foot, before you ever write an offer, you know it's important to these people. And if you don't, go back to real estate school and start over because that is our job, is to find their hot buttons and make sure we put them in the right home, right? So we have to get a hold of these restrictions because if someone wants a pool, we're not going to sell them a house they can't put a pool in, right? That wouldn't be smart. So, but is it your job to read every single restriction and be able to decipher it for them? No, I absolutely don't recommend that you do that. You have a lot of liability as soon as those covenants touch your hands. So I actually called the legal department on this about 6 months ago because I was in a situation where I had a neighborhood where there were a bunch of covenants, a bunch of different variations of covenants. And I started getting really nervous about this one buyer who wanted to do something. And I'm thinking, what if I don't have the most accurate covenants? So I called legal and said, as a listing agent, am I obligated to supply these covenants to the buyers and their agent? The answer was, what do you think the answer was? Am I obligated as a listing agent to provide the covenants and restrictions to the buyers? Am I?
From what I've learned, you are, but not to decipher them.
Anybody else?
No, not about.
Everything is depends.
So let me tell you what legal told me. You are not required to provide it, but if you do, it damn well better be right. So what I am doing as my personal practice is, as a listing agent, I am contacting the HOA directly myself because the HOA is the ultimate source for that information. They know the most current, most up-to-date rules, bylaws, and covenants. So I'm calling them. If I can't get them, because a lot of times now they're a management company who wants to pay you, wants to charge you an arm and a leg for that information, I'll get my seller to request it because they have to provide it to the seller for free. Only then do I post those up on the thing. And I still probably, it hasn't happened yet because since I've started initiating that, I haven't needed to do that. But if I were, I probably still wouldn't post it. I would probably give it only when asked and clarify to them, this is what I received from the HOA 6 months ago or 4 months ago, whenever the listing came. Verify with yourself by yourself. And what legal told me is it's the buyer's due diligence process. It's the buyer and their agent's responsibility to make sure that this is a good fit for them. I found that surprising because I thought, like Jacob did, that as a listing agent, I was responsible for sharing that information, but we are not. So, but we do have to make sure that if we know there's something that is important to our clients that is likely to be in there, you provide those to them however you can get them to them ASAP. And then I do look over them to make sure that I know what they're saying about the pool or the chickens or whatever else they might want to do. Are there any things you can think of that are also things that we might need permission from the HOA that are hot buttons?
Running a business out of your house?
What's that on Zoom?
Running a business out of your house?
That's a great one because a lot of them have restrictions against businesses and a lot of people work from home. Most of them allow you to work from home as long as you're not advertising at your home and you don't have signs and things like that. Sometimes the vehicle can be wrapped and that can get in the way. So you have to verify. I know he can't run a business, but he drives a company vehicle. Can it be stored in the driveway? You may get an answer of no, and they have to park it in the garage, which is a deal changer for them. Okay, so definitely. Anything else?
Airbnb.
Pets.
Right, not just the number, but sometimes the type of pet. We have a lot of neighborhoods, particularly in the more metropolitan areas, that are really gun shy about the bully breeds, they call them. So you have to definitely look at that because I am a fur mama. I don't have children. I was not blessed with children. My dogs are my life. And if I can't have them, I'm not living there. It's that important. So please don't bypass that one. Very good. And then what happens if we have these restrictive covenants, but we don't have an HOA? Are they still enforceable?
Restrictive covenants?
Uh-huh. Yep. By whom? So there's the real question, right?
It depends on where you live, whether the county or, I'm not sure.
That's a really good question. So here's what my understanding is, and if I'm wrong or if anybody has different information, share with me, please. My understanding is that the neighborhood is who has to enforce them because that's who the rules are created for. So if, for example, one person in the neighborhood gets chickens and nobody says anything about it, and then another person gets chickens, we can't go after either one of them because we let it go the first time.
Okay.
So that's what my understanding is. If there is a blatant rule being broken, the community has to come together and try to get that person on board. And at that point, once the community has done that, they can involve the sheriff, I believe, and the government, the police can come in and say, these are the rules, you're in violation. I think you can do it that way. I'm not 100% sure. I had one neighborhood where they said they had even contacted the sheriff about this guy who wasn't obeying the rules and he had crap everywhere. So anyway, but just let your people know that the absence of an HOA does not mean the absence of rules and that the rules are very much still enforceable. However, I have also told my clients, well, it does say that you can't have a chain link fence, but there's 4 of them. And they look like they've been here a while. So what we need to do is check and make sure that these 4 weren't somehow grandfathered in. Make sure that these 4 lots don't allow the fence where the rest of the neighborhood doesn't. And then I think you would have a leg to stand on if you wanted to go for that. But that's up to you, not me, to take that chance.
What's the difference between covenants that run with the land and then restrictive covenants?
I think the restrictive covenants are the paper, the body of the document, and they run with the land. Meaning they are binding with that piece of property until they are told not to be binding. So they typically are written, they run with the land for a period of 20 to 25 years. And typically after that, it says whether they will automatically expire or automatically renew if they are unchallenged, right? Do you guys see that most? Is that what y'all see? Okay, we're going to just say that's what it is. That's what I see. So they run with the land unless is what my understanding is. Any other questions? Okay. Property disclosures, the RPODs, I think a lot of times, especially a lot of you guys, I saw a lot of hands less than 5 years. So a lot of you may have come on this during COVID. And that was a terrible time to learn how to do real estate because we could not effectively do our jobs. We really couldn't. Our buyers didn't care that there was $20,000 worth of obvious damage to our eyes before we ever go in. They wanted the house anyway because it was all they could get, right? Who remembers those days? So we have to back up. And I do think that it is extremely important for us to all slow ourselves back down and look at all these things. Look at the houses slowly. Who has listings in the room? Anybody? How long you been toting them?
130, 145.
Okay. So things are not selling in a week, right? None of them.
Mine's been only 60 days.
Yeah. I had one go for 120 before it sold. And so buyers are not ready to act at the second we show them the property anymore. And right, which is great for us, you guys. It gives us our license back to do our job properly. So we should slow down and be looking at these things. We didn't have time to do it before. So look at your RPODs when you get it before you send it over to them and make sure there's not something you want to fix with them. It may say there is a problem. There's a question on there that's a clear yes, but it should be a yes. I can't even remember which one it is, but it's the only one on there that you want them to answer yes. So, but it's legalese. So if you tell them just look for the yeses, and see if anything bothers you, they may not understand what that yes is. So glance at it, see if there's anything that's going to trouble them that you could be explaining up front. Checking flood maps. Who checks flood maps before they write an offer? What do you guys use? What platform? How do you find the flood? How do you find out if it's in a flood map? You go straight to FEMA. Is that what everybody does? I use GIS. I start at GIS. Yeah.
I do start GIS. Well,
Okay. GIS is just easier to me because I'm in there anyway and I'm already doing stuff in there. So I do a quick snapshot of it because and then if it's close, I go to FEMA to get the more detailed thing. But I pull up that flood map because it's accurate enough to tell me how close is the flood zone. Okay. And then you can also go to, Keith had a note on here. There's a flood map layer on the MLS map. I'm not familiar with that, which is a bit embarrassing. So I'll have to look into that, but you may be able to see it on there as well. He may have meant GIS and not MLS. I'm not familiar with it on MLS.
I think I've seen it once on MLS, but I think GIS still.
Okay. How many of y'all sell in the country? Okay. So how important is the high-speed Wi-Fi? Pretty important. So utilities maybe haven't been as big a deal as they are now, but we are frequently having to check utilities for our buyers. Does it have high-speed internet? What is my cell phone signal, right? We never had to deal with that before, but now we do. It's important because I need to be able to make phone calls or else I'm going to have to use Wi-Fi calling and then I have to get the Wi-Fi. Some people don't even want that. So and if the power goes out, then I have no cell signal if I'm using Wi-Fi, right? So these things are all important. Public sewer versus septic and water source. These are also humongous hot buttons. When I was really new in the business, I forgot to tell somebody to call the water company and get the water in their name. I've moved a lot before now. I moved a lot growing up. So it never occurred to me that you have to tell people to call and get their utilities changed, right? Because to me, it was just normal. How else would I get power and water? I have to call somebody and get them to turn it on. But I repeatedly found people not doing that. And I figured out that's because I moved a lot. But this one particular case she was a single woman, recently divorced with 4 girls, all under the age of 12. Okay. They moved on a Friday afternoon and she called me at 2:00 and said, we have no water. And I said, well, did you call the water company? Yeah. I didn't know I had to turn it on. I've been on a well. And her whole life, she's been on a well. She had no idea about this. It's Friday afternoon. It's 100 degrees in the summer with 4 girls. I'm in a state of panic. So anyway, I ended up getting the water turned on that afternoon by a very kind call to the county to explain the situation. But the point is, find out if this is important to them, because if well water, some people like well water, they don't want to pay the water bill. Others are concerned about it. You got to find out what those things are. Gas versus electric. What are some problems with gas heat? Are there any that you guys know of? Everybody likes gas heat? Nobody likes gas heat. Okay, well, they're very different. Gas heat is more expensive in the winter time. But electric heat I would actually probably think that gas heat is more economical, except that when gas prices are high, then it is not more economical. So it's just, you have to figure out what your hot button is for your client. Trash pickup. Keith, if you're watching, God bless you. Keith said, I don't even know if we've moved on, haven't we? Keith said something about, he said trash pickup just in case you're way out there. Well, for all of you who live in Metropolis, you don't have to be way out there to not have trash pickup. Here's how it works in North Carolina. If you are inside city limits, you're going to have trash pickup usually included with your utility bill, because that's how most of our small towns operate. And then I think the big towns do too, if anybody lives in Raleigh. But if you happen to either not live in a planned neighborhood, or if you live a little bit out there, as I do, you'll call an individual trash company. Some people don't understand that concept. It's actually very economical. I think I pay $60 a quarter and someone comes once a week and gets my trash and they're very nice. So it's a whole lot easier. You can also go to the dump. All right, private roads. Who's worked with a private road before? I see some who haven't worked with a private road. So private roads have their own little issues. What's one of the issues you found, Wendy, with a private road? You gave a big old sign.
Who's maintaining it?
Why is it important to know who's maintaining this road?
Costs. Your loan.
Right. So there's different ways that a road is maintained. It can be maintained by the city. If you live inside the city limits, most of them are. It can be maintained by the state. Fun fact, are all state maintained roads paved? No. I actually tested, I was on a road one time and I was like, there's no way this is a state road. I was pricing something. There's no way this is a state road, but just to be diligent, I'm going to check it and I'll be damned if it wasn't a state road on a dirt road. So it's either the city, the state, the HOA, the neighborhood, or the individual homeowners or nobody. Those are the options. There's only one that the bank is not going to like, and that's the nobody. You've got to take the nobody off the list if your buyer is getting financing. So find out if it's a private road. If it is there a road maintenance agreement? As long as there is, your loan should be fine. Provide that to the lender. If there isn't, what do you think you have to do? What's going to happen?
Get one.
How do we do that, Wendy?
You doorknob.
You doorknob. And one more fun fact, on my street, there's 5 houses and we did not have a road maintenance agreement. Every few years, one of the neighbors at the end would contact the person to come and repave, and 4 of us would pay for it because the 5th didn't want to. Okay. Fast forward to 2 years ago and the 5th needs to refinance her house. Guess who came knocking on all of our doors? And we all signed it because why? Because now she's going to start paying. Now she has to start contributing. All right. I think all the government loans, no, 2 of the 3 government loans require the road maintenance agreement. But I will say, I believe USDA is one of them. Is that your understanding?
USDA.
And the last time it happened to me, we didn't have one and it still went through. I don't know how, and I don't care because I was really lucky. It was just a blessing because they did ask for it, but they asked for it after it came through underwriting and I just never gave it and it just went. So
If it's a good listing agent, they'll help you. Of course, again.
yes, because they want to sell it too. All right. What's my time? Oh, I'm running all the way out of time. Okay, zoning. We also need to check for zoning research plan developments. There's a lot of growing. What's the number 1 growing county in North Carolina? That's right here in our friendly Joco. So there's neighborhoods going up everywhere. Can you give me some ideas of how we might know if there's a neighborhood going in this beautiful pasture behind the house we're about to buy? Look at the name of it. Is it an individual or is it an LLC? That's a tip right there. One tip, right? If it's an LLC, it might be that they are planning something for it. If it's an individual who when you look at GIS, you have site address and you have mailing address, right? Have y'all seen that before? So the site address is where the property is. The mailing address is where the owner of that property lives. So if the mailing address is in another part of the world, might they not live on that property? Fair to assume that, right? If they're not living there, they may be a little more likely to sell it to a developer for land development.
Yes.
Maybe. Now, what happens if it is an individual owner and the farmer's farming it, but he's 100 years old? Chances are his kids aren't going to want to be a farmer unless they're already farming it with him. So that's where I always leave it. I've done my research. It's not owned by an LLC. It's not, it seems to be that the owner lives there. I see crops on it, so they may be farming it themselves. You're probably okay for a little while, but who knows? He could decide tomorrow to sell, and we never know what that looks like. But those are some ways you can tell in the immediate things. The other way is the DOT website. We've got a lot of road construction going on. DOT website is very, very helpful. They're also very helpful if you call them. And just because you have an issue, just because you have a road coming through your neighborhood, doesn't mean you can't sell it. I was still on April's team when 540 first started, when they finally approved the route. And it was going to be a couple years before anything happened. And we were selling house after house with a map showing where the highway is coming. Here's their house. Here's the highway. People still bought it because they couldn't see it, They didn't mean it. They didn't get it. They knew it. We had them sign something that says they knew it. They still bought it. So it doesn't mean you can't sell it. Don't be afraid to find out the information. Just disclose it to cover your tail so they can't come back and get you later. Okay. The only other nuisance I see a lot in our area is hog farms and other type farms, poultry farms. If you get out there in the rural areas, you're going to have some of that. And a quick search will tell you how far you are from that. Example, I sold my father-in-law a house. I fell in love with the house for them. So I encouraged them to buy it. They fell in love with the house. And after we're under contract, I went, oh my gosh, it's a Kenley address. I drove there. I've been to Nahunta Pork Center one time. I'm not sure where Nahunta is relative to this house I just put him under contract on. I was a little late, right? So I did look it up and we were 1.5 miles away. And then I did a little research to find out how far we were supposed to be away to where it wouldn't smell. And what I found is 1/2 acre, under 1/2 acre, you're going to stink. It's going to be a problem. So when you're shopping rurally, check the maps for farmland around. There's a designation, and right off the top of my head, I can't think of the name of it. If anybody knows it, blurt it out. There's a designation that is an agricultural, federal agricultural zoning, agricultural area that could be one of those farms. So you want to investigate that, find out the name of the farm and what type of farm it is, and make sure if you're within 1/2 mile, you let your people know there's a hog farm 1/8 mile that way. It might smell when it's hot, and make sure they do their own research on that. Okay. I did also learn when I was investigating for this that the most claims in a court system are unviable if they're within 1/2 mile of the plant, the farm. So 1/2 mile, 1/2 mile, 1/2 mile. And I also feel like I was told that when I was working in Cary many years ago, and they had a road project coming in. If you're 1/2 mile from a major highway, it should not be a disturbance noise-wise. 1/2 mile. So remember 1/2 mile. All right. Do you all want me to quit? Because we are almost at 12. I can just quit and we can come back another day, or I can quick run through the rest of the topics just for a glimpse. Quick run through. Okay.
Yes.
Whoever that was, thank you on Zoom. Thank you on Zoom. Okay. So when you're actually at the property, you want to assess the age of the major structural system, the major components, the HVAC, the roof, the big things that are going to cost your buyer some money. So you can cross-reference with the RPODs. Oftentimes people don't know how old the HVAC is. There's a way to find this out. I'll tell you after class if you're interested, but you can take a picture of the serial number, Google that company name and how to find the age, and they will tell you how to decipher that serial number and identify the year that system was put in. So find out how old that system is, because that's the biggest one. And then the roof is another big one. And I don't know how to tell if a roof is new or old other than looks. So I will say that from home inspections I've seen, what you hear a lot is granular. There's a lot of granular degradation. So if you're seeing a lot of like the little grainy stuff on the ground or whatever, or scattered about, I imagine that means the roof is not great. It's just a guess. But I do defer the roof to other people because there's not really a way that I know of to check that. And then obviously check the appliances for wear and tear. I will say unoccupied dwellings frequently have systems that fail. Refrigerator, washer, dryer, if they're included, range, and dishwasher is the biggest one because those seals dry out. And houses that sit vacant, as soon as the inspector goes in to run that dishwasher, it's leaking all over the floor. So do check those. If you know it's been vacant, make sure that you're checking those systems when you do your inspections.
It's been vacant and the water just sits there and then it's got a really big smell.
Yes, that's another good point, because that does happen. It smells awful. It's totally rotten eggs. It's terrible.
But it does go.
Yeah, very good one. And then Keith has on here, check the windows for fogging. I have sort of mixed feelings about this, and I it's because I'm old school. So I'm just gonna say my piece on it, and you guys decide what you want to do with that information. Does everybody want to go get lunch and I'll keep talking, or do you want to keep talking? Okay. So with the windows, the fact is when there is clouding in between the two panes, you can't wipe it off. That is a defect in that window. The argon gas that was inside of it has leaked out. Air is getting in, moisture is getting in, and that's what's causing those fogged windows. So home inspectors are 100% correct when they say it is not functioning as it was intended, because it has lost that gas. Back in the day, a lot of home inspectors considered that cosmetic because the amount that the amount of that savings that are is so minimal that the cost savings to your client because that seal has failed is really not huge in the grand scheme of things. So I leave the window issue up to my clients. I educate them and leave it up to them as to what is going to happen, because it is one of those things that typically sellers do not want to fix. They see it as cosmetic. And again, this is me personally, do not call the commission on me or anything, because this is just my opinion. I'm blatantly stating it. I think it's more cosmetic personally, but you need to identify what your clients feel about it and explain to it the way you want to. And then if it is an issue for them and you see them on the walkthrough, you better write it in your offer, because you're not going to have good luck getting it otherwise. Okay, especially when there are other things. So look at those windows. A lot of people, if you walk into a house and the blinds and the curtains are all closed, you best be opening them, because it might be for a reason. Or a lot of times the seller doesn't even know they're bad because they live that way. They leave them closed all the time and they don't even know it. All right. Any questions? All right. Moving on. We're looking for visible cracks and stains on the ceiling, etc. I will say a lot of times what I see staining on a ceiling is old. And it's very hard to repaint a ceiling. If you didn't know that, there are hundreds of white ceiling paint colors. And if you pick the wrong one, you got to do the whole thing. What I also recently learned is if it is a water stain and you paint through it with a regular ceiling paint, that stain is eventually going to seep right back through. You have to paint it with a special paint that is it's like a kills for water stains. Okay. So just the mere existence of it doesn't mean that it's a problem, but it means there could have been one in the past and you'll want to ask about it. Cracking is crazy because just because it cracks doesn't mean that the house is falling down. I have them in my house. I was very alarmed. I've been there 21 years now. I painted during COVID. So 5 years ago, I painted. And when I painted, I patched those. And I thought to myself, I'm going to paint them. And if they come back, I know I have a problem. If they don't, I know it was settling. That's just me how I'm doing it, because I don't see any cracking in my foundation or anything like that. I don't know what it is. I'm not selling it yet, so I haven't had to ask anybody. 5 years later, there's no cracking. So Tracey thinks her house is fine. I don't know if I'm right or wrong, but just what I'm saying is look for those things, look for those cracks, make notes of them yourself, ask about them. But please don't alarm your client into thinking that this is not a good house for them to buy because there's a crack. That's not necessarily true. Fair?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's talk about foundation. This is the biggest one that I wanted to get to today. Is Caitlin still with us?
Thanks. Yeah, I see her.
Okay. Well, Kate, she
What do
might
you
not be.
want?
I want to know about foundations. So Caitlin and I had a client many years ago with a I think it was $100,000 budget, right, Caitlin?
Yep.
So she had $100,000 budget. That's hard to do, right? Yeah. And beggars can't be choosers. So we weren't going to buy her the Taj Mahal for $100,000. So Caitlin runs all over the state to find this young woman a house, and it's a great house. Was there anything that we forgot to do, Caitlin, when we first looked? Myself included.
We didn't look in the crawl space, Tracey.
We did not look in the crawl space, you guys. We did not look in the crawl space. Guess what was in the crawl space when it came time for inspections, you guys? Guess what was in the crawl space?
Cracks.
Water.
How much water, Caitlin?
9 inches
9
of
inches.
standing water.
9 inches of water. Would Caitlin and Tracey have seen this if Caitlin and Tracey had opened up that crawl space door? Betcha, you betcha. But here's in Caitlin's and my defense. This was a flip. So
They should have known.
they should have known and they should have disclosed.
Yes.
We took a little bit for granted. It was a solid flip. Come to find out, the flipper was less than reputable and there was damage. That water had been in there for a very long time. It had rained abundantly the day of the home inspection. We may not have seen that water if we had opened it, but it was enough to jar us into, oh crap, I will never, ever, ever write an offer again without opening the crawl space door. And again, it's not our job to be the home inspector, but it is our job to do the best that we can with what we have. Okay, questions on that? Thanks for sharing, Caitlin. I didn't mean to throw you under the bus, but
Yeah, I'm one, I do not go to crawl space.
I don't either.
But
I don't go
okay.
up, I don't go down, but I take a peek.
I'll peek in with my
Yeah.
flashlight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll peek in and then say, no, peek.
Yes, same. Okay, now we've talked a lot about our homework, but your buyers have homework they're responsible to do too. So let's talk about some of their homework. The first one is they always ask us about. There's some hot buttons for them. What's one of them?
How's the roof?
Okay, forget about the roof. Let's talk
Okay.
about because we don't know, but schools is one.
Oh.
They want to know, how are the schools? Are we allowed to answer that?
No.
No, what can we do?
Be the source of
Directly
authority.
to the source.
Source of source. Send them to a website and let them do their own research. And another important question in our area is, what's the difference between Wake County and Johnson County schools?
Yep.
Pretty big, right?
Yep.
Huge difference, because Wake County caps like that, don't they still?
Yeah.
And you gotta go somewhere else. So it's complicated. So educate on schools. And what is another big one that they ask us that we're not allowed to talk to them about? Right. What do we do with crime? How do we advise them with crime?
Send them to a website.
Send them to a website. Is there anything else? Now, Wake County's website is phenomenal for crime. Have you guys seen that? If you haven't, go to Wake County, find the property address that you're looking at. It might be inside Raleigh city limits, maybe, but I thought it was all of Wake County, but it's definitely Raleigh city limits. And there's a drop down choice of crime stats. And when you can even set some parameters, and it'll show you not only what crimes have occurred within a 1 mile, 2 mile, 5 mile radius, or how many, but it'll show you what the crime was, what type of crime it was. And it's very, very valuable. So I love that website. And another thing that I tell all of my clients this: call the local sheriff's, give them the address of the house you're looking at, and ask them for the last 6 months complaints. What were they and what was the result? And then you'll have a good feeling for what the neighborhood is. Now, the third thing that I highly recommend that they do, you can do it too if you'd like, is drive through the neighborhood at different times of day. Because you're going to see a different neighborhood when everybody's at work versus when everybody's home in the evenings. And some neighborhoods, you're going to have more people home during the day and less home at night. So they need to see how that neighborhood lives all times of day based on their lives as well. Questions about that?
What website was that?
That was Wake County GIS.
Oh,
Yeah. It's within their GIS, and it might only do it. I think it's a Raleigh PD thing within their GIS IMAX. So I think it's only Raleigh. But if you're selling a Raleigh city limits, you should be able to pull it up. Yeah. If I'm wrong, somebody correct me. I haven't looked at that in years. Honestly, I haven't sold in Raleigh in Raleigh city limits in a very, very long time. The last one is commute times and traffic. That can be really important to people, right? Especially in our neck of the woods, because a lot of the people we service live here, work there, or elsewhere. So we've done some things you can easily, everybody has a maps program. You can look on maps and find out how far away it is, but it becomes challenging to know what to do for traffic times. So I have a suggestion for you. I've done this before when I'm at a property, they like it. How far is it from my job? Well, I'm right there on the property, pulling open my maps app, and I'm putting it in. How long would it take you right now to get to work? Bob, it's going to take you 25 minutes to get to RDU from here. What you can do also is go to ChatGPT and ask ChatGPT, or whatever your AI program is, how long is it going to take me to get from here to here during various times of
A
day?
lot of GPS have had that too. What
Do they?
time will you be traveling?
Yeah.
Oh, very good. I haven't
I've
done
done
that.
that. Yeah. Well, I've had clients with me do that.
Who is that? Is that
I don't know if
Google
it's-
Maps?
Was it Google or? I've done it on GIS.
I
Not
haven't.
gonna do it on both. Yeah.
What about Waves? I don't use Waves.
I'll let Sean, he loves Waves.
It must be a guy thing.
Yeah.
Mike loves it, and all of his guy friends love it, and all of our girlfriends in the same group are like, no, Waze is terrible. Okay, so you can use AI or your Maps program. I'm not surprised that the Maps programs have it. They should, and you should have a long time ago. So, any other questions before I close this out here today? In summary, just like not all attorneys and everybody else is created equal, all real estate agents are not created equal. Please don't assume that the listing agent is going to do all of their homework when you are bringing a buyer to their property. And we've got to do our own homework, and that that makes you the hero. You have the power to be the hero in your hands, take it. And
Love it.
thanks for coming today.
Thank you.